Hey everyone, it's Anthony from Pretty Printing here. In today's video, I'll be talking about how to use Google Sheets within Python. And by that, I mean simply viewing the data in a spreadsheet, inserting data, modifying data, and deleting data that you have in your Google Sheet. So I have a simple Google Sheet set up here. There's nothing in it yet. I called it tests, but as you'll see throughout this video, I'll be working with this spreadsheet here. And before I can actually do that, I have to set things up through Google to handle this. So I'm on the Google Developers Console right now, and I'll include a link to this in the description below so you can use it yourself. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a project and then enable the APIs that I need and create the credentials so I can actually access these APIs through the library that I'll be using in Python. So I'll create a project and I'll call this spreadsheet example. And I'll just go ahead and create that. And it's going to create this project for me, and it's just taking a moment here. So let's see if I refresh if my project that I just created is there. Okay, there we go. So spreadsheet example. So if I just click on that, I am now within the spreadsheet example project. And what I want to do is I want to go to API and services. I'll go to the dashboard. And I'm going to enable a couple of APIs. The first one is actually right here, Google Drive API. And the second one is going to be Google Sheets API. So I'll actually do the other one first so you can see me scrolling through them. So I can either search for the API that I'm interested in here, or I can search for it. So let me just type Sheets. And I see the Google Sheets API. So I'll click that. And then I'll hit this enable button here. And it's enabling, and this should only take a moment. And I'm going to do the exact same thing for the Google Drive API once this Google Sheets API is completely enabled. Okay, so there we go. The Google Sheets API is working. Now if I go back to the dashboard, I can search for another one. And in this case, I want the Google Drive. So you need Google Drive and Google Sheets. So I'll enable Google Drive now. And then once I have that, I'm going to create some credentials to work with these APIs. So basically the reason why you need credentials is because Google needs to know that someone has permission to access the data that you have somewhere, in this case, my spreadsheet. So now that I have the two APIs enabled, Google's actually telling me that I need credentials. So I'm going to go down to here and click credentials and then create credentials. It's going to give me a drop down. For this particular example, we're going to use the service account key. So click that and then select the account, new service account, and give it a name. So the name I'll give mine is Pretty Printed. And the role I'll give mine is, let's say, go to project. And then I want to be able to at least edit, so I can use editor. If I want even full access, like I can create things or delete things, I can use owner. For our case, we'll just use everything, but you may want to look into the roles if you want to limit it. But if you're using it on your own, then this doesn't matter too much. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this. I need to use JSON here, create, and it's going to create a file that I can download. So it just downloaded this onto my computer. Spreadsheet example and blah, blah, blah.json. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that into my project directory. So copy, let's see, downloads, and then spreadsheet. I'm going to copy that into my directory so I have it here. So spreadsheet example -C91. And you don't have to use the command line to copy the file. You can just open it up, but I didn't feel like opening up my download folder. So you can just copy the file directly if that's what you want to do. So once you have that, you then need to go into that file. So let's see if I can open it here. We're going to open this with Notepad. Doesn't really matter what you use, but you're looking for an email in here. So if I scroll over, there's going to be an email. If I can just find it. Where is it? Here we go. So client email. I need to copy that email from the file that was downloaded to my computer, copy that. And then in my spreadsheet, I want to share my spreadsheet with that email. So send. And then that's pretty much it for the Google configuration part. So now that I have that configured, what I need to do is now think about installing the Python libraries and then writing the code in Python. So the first thing I'll do is I will install what I need. So I'm going to install gspread first. So you can use pip or whatever you use to install. So I'm going to install gspread. So G and then spread. And then once gspread's installed, I'm going to install a couple of other things. I'm going to install something called OAuth 2 client, and then I'm going to install PyOpenSSL just to be safe. You might not need PyOpenSSL on your computer, but just for purposes of this tutorial, you can install it just in case your computer wouldn't work without it. If it would work without it, then you wouldn't need it and it wouldn't make a difference anyway. So right now it's just installing gspread, which is the main library that we're going to use to interact with the spreadsheet. Okay. Now I want to install the OAuth 2 client. So pip imp install OAuth 2 client. And this is going to install. And then once this is installed, I'll do the final installation to install PyOpenSSL. So pip imp install PyOpenSSL, just like that. And this should only take a moment. And then once this is done, we'll be able to actually write Python code to work with the spreadsheet, the actual interesting part. And this is something that you only have to do once, of course, and then everything after this is specific to what you actually want to do with your spreadsheet. So it takes a little while, but once it's done, it is done. Okay, so just turning on my virtual environment, and now we are ready to actually write some Python code. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll start writing the code to handle this, and it's actually fairly simple once you get past the part for the authentication. So I'm going to import a couple of things. So import gspread, and then I'm going to say from OAuth 2 client .service account, I want to import service account credentials, which is going to take in the credentials that I downloaded from Google and use it to authenticate. So I'll create a variable called credentials. So credentials, and I'm going to take that class service account credentials that I just imported, and I'm going to call, or not that class, but that module. So from _JSON _key file _name. I'm going to use the name that I have for the file that I downloaded. So in this case, spreadsheet example -c91ed29eca3f.json. So I'll just copy that and I'll put it here. And then above this, I need to supply something called a scope. So with Google APIs, scope basically just means like what you want to have access to. So Google has a million APIs, so you need to be specific about what you're going to be modifying. So in this case, I'm going to add two things. I'm going to add one for spreadsheets and one for Drive. And this kind of mirrors what we did on the console dashboard, where we enabled the Google Drive API and the Google Sheets API. So I need to put in two addresses here. One is spreadsheets.google.com/feeds, and the other is going to be Google APIs /auth/drive. So I need those two to actually work with my API. And I'm going to pass this scope to the service account credentials from JSON key file _name. And then I'm going to authorize. So we'll call this, let's say GC. Is going to be gspread.authorize, and I'm going to pass in those credentials that I just created above. So credentials here, pass it into authorize. And then that's it in terms of actually getting to the part where you're working with your spreadsheet. Now everything after this deals with actually seeing the data. So for the first thing, let's see if we can actually see. So WKS is going to be a worksheet. And I'll use the GC that I just created above. So GC open, and then the name of your spreadsheet. In my case, it's tests, and I'll use sheet 1. And what I'll do is I'll print worksheet get all records. Just like that. So now if I run this, let's see what happens. Tells me that list index is out of range. Well, I'm pretty sure you can kind of guess why that's happening. It's because I have no data in my table or my spreadsheet. So I'll just say column 1 and column 2, and then I'll put some data and then some other data. And every time I click somewhere, it's automatically saved for me. So let's go ahead and try that again. Run the example.py file. And now we see the data that I have. So this is a dictionary. And we see column 1 has some data, and then column 2 has some other data. And this represents each row. So the first row is the header. So those are going to be the keys in the dictionary. And the second row is the actual data. So if I added a third row, more data, even more data, we'll see what happens. If I run this, I now have 2 dictionaries in this list that's returned. The first one is some data and some other data, so that's what we had before. And the second one is more data and even more data, which represents the third row. So here you can see we are clearly getting the data back from the Google Sheets API through GSpread. So now that we can see that we can view the data, let's go through some common operations that we will want to perform on our spreadsheet. So let's try adding a new row. So if I go to my code here, oops, wrong editor. VS Code is my editor. Instead of printing this, what I'll do is I'll take that worksheet and I'll use it to do something else. So in this case, I want to append a row. So append underscore row. And this is going to take in some values. So my spreadsheet has 2 columns. So I'm going to pass in a list, and each element in the list is going to be put into a column. So I'll actually demonstrate that now. So this goes into first column, and then this goes into second column. So if I save that and I run it, and then I go to my spreadsheet, we see that it has been updated with what I just added. If I do something else, like here is even more information, more info in second column. If I save this and run it, and then look here, it's going to be updated. So it's running in the background on my console, and then once it finishes, it's going to update here. It's still working. It's slow for me on my computer right now. If I press enter, yeah, I did. Okay, there it goes. So here's even more information and more info in the second column. So we see that we're able to easily add in additional information. And by the way, if you added more columns than there were like column headers, then it will simply extend the size of your spreadsheet. So, you can put something here without having the corresponding header there. And another thing that I will want to do is delete rows. So first, let me show you everything that I have. So if I use the print again, so uncomment that and comment out the append row and run this, we will see the 4 rows that I have underneath the header. So here I have 4 dictionaries in here representing the 4 rows that I have. Let's say I want to delete a row. So I'll take the index of 1. So let's take the index of 2 and we'll see what happens. So actually put this above. So worksheet dot delete underscore row, pass in an index. So delete the row with index 2 and we run it again. And if we look at our spreadsheet live as it's running in the background, we'll see how the data goes away. And it should go away any moment now if it is working. It's just taking a while on my computer. My internet connection is spotty right now. But basically, once it's done running, it's going to simply remove a row from the database. And we see that the row is now gone. So instead of having 5 rows, including the header, we only have 4 rows. So 3 rows with actual data in them, including the row with the 3 rows with data, and then the 4th row is the header row. But you see how you just select an index and then you delete it. So the index in this case was 2. So it's not 0-based indexing like you're used to. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4. In the case I deleted number 2 and it deleted the 2nd row in my sheet. So there are more things to do, but I realize this video is getting a little long. So what I want to do is in the next video, I'll cover mostly finding information in the spreadsheet and updating it. And that's probably some really interesting thing that you want to do because, you know, reading the data is nice up to a certain point, but you also want to be able to modify it. So I'll cover that in the next video. So if you have any questions about anything in this video, you can leave a comment down below and I'll get to it. If you like this video, you can give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please subscribe. So thank you for watching and I will talk to you next time.